If I can get a smooth single off this, I can work with it because I'm going to steal 3 bases. You know what I mean?
Being involved in the community is the right thing to do, and it's the most natural way to network.
If you want something, you got to go get it. I kind of got tired of waiting and I wanted to do more action.
Entrepreneurs we've talked to in a lot of different fields, they all start with a version of, I think I can do this.
I definitely was the kid in elementary school being like, hey, I'll draw your picture for like a nickel.
You have to dig for it. It's
in the name, or my name.
Welcome everybody to Season 2, Episode 5 of the How They Crushed It podcast, sponsored by Direct Mortgage Loans. And today's guest, my friend Terrance Diggs from D17. I'm not going to tell you what D17 stands for. You're going to have to tune in to find out. Welcome everyone to Season 2, I'm looking at my notes, Episode 5 of the How They Crushed It podcast, sponsored by Direct Mortgage Loans. We have a great guest today, Terrance Diggs from D17.
Yes.
There's no, just D17, that's the name of the business.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get into what the business is in a minute, but you don't give it away in the name of the business.
Yeah, we'll kind of go into it in each subsections of it. Like, I feel like it has multiple names, but just D17 is
D17, everybody. And you can find Terrance and D17 in the notes below on multiple platforms, so check them out as you get into this thing. But Terrance, welcome.
Glad to be here.
Glad to have you, man.
It's a great morning, happy to come hang with you guys, and let's get into it.
Well, thank you. And I love that you wore the orange that matches the How They Crushed It. It's got the D17.
Like I said, I did my research. I tried to stay on, the brand guidelines and everything, and, had to match a little bit.
Well, that really means we're coming into our own Tiffany back there if we've got people that are, that
and
on brand.
And our alma mater high school shirt.
Oh, there we go.
We'll get into it in the interview.
I love that. Well, look, Terrance, we always start off with a little section with some funny rapid fire questions to loosen things up. And then we talk about, we try to get into your journey into entrepreneurship and what's going on sales and marketing wise. We'll get into all that. First and foremost, we call it How They Crushed It. Do you drink Crushes ever?
If it's an O's game.
Okay.
Like an Orange Crush.
Okay.
Pickles or something for a game.
Good answer. Good answer. I'd love an Orange Crush at an Orioles game. Hey, and this is since you know Tiffany off camera here, and it's the summer of 2024. Are you a Swiftie?
I think for a minute, she's got great songs, but after that loss against the Ravens, with the Chiefs, I couldn't.
Best answer I've had from any podcast. I'm the same way.
I'm a Baltimore guy, so it's like, anything with that or like trying to stick into it, I'm there.
Best answer, because that's my answer. I have a really hard time with it.
Yeah, ever since that Travis Kelce kicking Justin Tucker's helmet, I was like, no more Apple Music streams.
My goddaughter, who doesn't care about football, wanted a Travis Kelce jersey for Christmas, and I told her parents, you cannot do that.
Oh,
she's from Baltimore. No shot. They didn't, for the record.
Gotta love it.
They didn't. But hey, one rapid fire question before we get into your business, and this will kind of be a lead in. What's the most popular fabrics for athletic wear out there?
I'd say right now it's got to be like the polyester. But then, nylon, it could be cotton. It's just so many different things.
What Google said was a combo of polyester, nylon, and spandex.
Yeah. Everybody's trying to get their own form of what's the best one. Do you want to go softer? Do you want to go more sweat wickening? It's kind of like, what kind of fits your brand and what you want to do. I like to stay more on the softer side. But that's just me personally, especially doing athletics. I like to be super.
Well, talk to us. I mean, take that. D17, you give us no qualifiers in the name of the company. What does D17 do? And, tell us.
Gotta love it. Yeah. So the name kind of came from, it's just my first initial, my last name, and the number I wore in high school, which is why I had to wear the alma mater t-shirt. So obviously D17 came, and we come to create opportunity through sports. We are a lifestyle and apparel brand, but we work a lot in philanthropy, working with grassroots organizations, and just using design and athletics to create opportunity, whether that's sponsoring 5Ks in Howard County, working with professional teams, working with college athletes, just being able to push that narrative forward. And my background is in design, so when it comes to doing something that's nostalgic but vintage, but still contemporary, but loud, but still feels like D17. That's where we're at now.
And only you know what feels like D17.
Yeah, that's the problem. I'm slowly building my team and being able to get like other marketers, other designers. Like for this piece, we did like contract somebody, but it is being able to like take my brain and put it into tangible product. But it's also a lot just like what's going on in the world. Like everyone's a runner now. Everyone's playing pickleball. Everyone's playing soccer.
We just had our pickleball. We had Bonnie from Baltimore Pickleball. She was that episode just dropped recently.
So I'm everywhere. If it's cool, I like it. You know, I still love all the other sports, but right now the running's been taking a lot of priority. Here we are. I'm almost 7 years in. And
good for you.
A year full time. So
1 year, 7 years in, 1 year full time. So it's what you're doing now.
It's what I'm doing. I'm waking up. I'm on the computer. I'm making cold calls. I'm looking at analytics. Testing fabrics and going from there.
And you're the primary designer as well, correct? Okay, cool. Well, talk to us. Look, I always start these things with everybody, and God, it's fascinating. The more people I talk to in different industries and different ages, all of it. Little Terrance, they clearly like sports.
Yeah.
How do you go from little Terrance who loves a bunch of sports to I want to run my own apparel design, business? I mean, like, how do you get started on that journey? I don't want to lead anybody anywhere because I always love where these stories go.
Yeah, I think really just growing up, obviously, like every kid watches like the Chicago Bulls, growing up, or like being from Maryland, like the Wizards or the Orioles, the Ravens. So obviously you see a lot of the apparel, obviously. And then growing up, I always loved art. I always loved designing. I remember.
Are you a natural art? I mean, are you artistic naturally?
I would say more or less a more creative, like artistic. Like I'm not like a painter or like a illustrator.
Creative though.
I like literally anything, video, audio, static image, just anything of that realm. But I've always been interested in it. I've always loved like looking at old school Ravens, branding and like shirts they did back in like their inaugural seasons, or being able
showing the difference in age here because I lived through those. I still own some of those shirts.
Now it's kind of crazy looking at like
my dad will show up with one from like '98 and he doesn't. It's not vintage to him. It's just still been in the drawer.
It's still in the drawer. But now it's like there's such a shift, especially like on eBay or shops like Depop. Like people are looking for those things to kind of wear them and like show them off at the games. Like, oh, check out this. Inaugural season, 83, all-star world championship Orioles shirt and stuff like that. And I feel like as I got a little bit older, I was like, okay, this is kind of what I wanted to do. I didn't really honestly start the business until my senior year of college at Towson. Literally right before graduation, I was just like, I think I want to make a clothing brand. I've always loved, Nike, Adidas, stuff like that. And like some of the boutique brands that are out there. And I was like, I think I could do this. I think I could put my own spin on things and really kind of tie my loves of philanthropy and community and being able to kind of put that all into one concept. And then that's what D17 grew to be.
Well, it's funny, entrepreneurs we've talked to in a lot of different fields, they all start with a version of, I think I can do this. It's not, and clearly there's no business plan. You don't have it figured out at that point in your life. It's, I think I can do this. But you said you didn't go straight into it full time. So you graduate Towson. Talk to me. Talk to me about your journey because you're doing this on the side. What were you doing? What else you do?
So like kind of going back at the beginning, I guess you could say, of my just career as a marketer and a designer. I actually started in the mortgage space doing.
don't give any other mortgage company any shout outs.
We're not gonna give any shout outs, but if they see this, you guys can, if the shoe fits. So I started doing that. Eventually I worked for a tech company in Ellicott City, doing like philanthropy and nonprofit fundraising. So a lot of foundations, schools, big brothers, big sisters, stuff like that. And I did a lot of design for them, just kind of was a jack of all trades, I guess you could say. And around 2019, I ended up going up to Boston to work for ASICS on their corporate side, doing like global social media. So that's when I really got to sit down and see the same things I grew up with. Now it's like, okay, I'm on the other side now.
Well, this is fascinating. So, but how much time are you putting into D17? Like, what type of priority is it getting from you at this point?
I think in the first couple of years, it was just like my 5 to 9, other than my 9 to 5. So it kind of was just like, okay, after work, I can kind of knock something out, a design or, if it's like one or two shirts here and there, it was more or less just gaining a lot of local traction. Like, yeah, I knew how to screen print. I knew how to do embroidery and stuff like that. And then more or less it kind of grows from just family to like friends to friends of friends, and then people asking, like if I go out, somebody's like, hey, like I remember that shirt my friend was wearing, I heard that was your business. And I was just like, it's just like a freelance kind of whatever,
You're downplaying it at this point.
Yeah, I was really downplaying it. It was just more or less like a side, like passion project. But then as time kind of went on, I started to see like a lot more people were asking, the demand was getting there. And I was like, okay, let me sit down and really refine this thing, build a mission, build like what we stand by, and then kind of go from there. So that's when the athletics part started to come in, because a lot of people were wearing the shirts to the gym. And I keep telling you, this is like my same like origin story.
I want to hear it.
My friend, she wore the shirt to the gym. At this point, I was like, I'm gonna make this high fashion,
So hold on, what year is this?
This was probably 2017.
Okay.
And then she wore the shirt to the gym. She texted me and she was like, oh, I wore this shirt to the gym. It's like a great gym shirt. And I was like, why did you do that? That wasn't the purpose for it. But I think a lot of times I didn't really know the strength of like a founder's story. A lot of people associated me with sports. So that's kind of how the brand kind of shifted from let's just make cool apparel to actually doing what we can to help athletes and just those that are into health and wellness.
Well, I love what you just said. So the strength of a founder's story, you don't realize it's a story while you're creating the story. You don't realize it's a founder's story until you look back on it. Is that,
yeah.
do you understand what I mean by that?
Yeah, it definitely now, it's like, especially with the running, like a lot of this stuff, a lot of people, they look to me like, well, what are you doing? If you guys are a running brand, am I just gonna be making the apparel for runners, or am I gonna be out there doing it too? So now I got to the point where, we're going to different club meetups. I'm running 5K, 10K, and prepping for half marathons now. I never did that before. And now it's kind of like, this is a new challenge I'm kind of facing.
So you're doing the branding and the gear for some of these races.
Yeah, we're doing the brand as well for them, and then for like our own members too. So we have about 170 members across the globe. And we do span out between that and then other sports like soccer. We sponsored 5 adult soccer programs in the state of Maryland. We've also sponsored a couple of like pickleball events just in Columbia, Maryland. And I really want to get into like basketball and baseball, but in due time that'll grow. But the running right now has really like propelled the business into like new ways I didn't even think of, honestly.
Well, it's one of the things I've learned interviewing a bunch of people is they all say a version of, you're saying it, a version of letting the world come to them.
Yeah.
So running and that opportunity, tell me, did that kind of come to you and just show up in front of you?
Yeah, it kind of came to me because really I was just wearing it to run like most people during like COVID and like the lockdown.
When I run, it's more of a shuffle. I call it a run. Tiff thinks of it as a shuffle.
It's how it goes. But like, I saw a bit of a gap, like, okay, there's a lot of people that are looking to get into health and wellness, and the easiest one that you could get into was running. But then it's also like, okay, we need to step into those kind of problems like equipment, obviously what you're wearing on your feet, what you're wearing on your body, preparation, recovery. It's a lot more that goes into it. And I think being able to have the running like with 5Ks that go on for like charitable organizations or schools, or even just like if somebody wants to get people together, I was like, okay, we're tying that community aspect. We're making really cool stuff for them based on just like our research and what they're looking for. And then we're also bringing in the health and wellness. So it all just tied together perfectly. And here we are.
Well, look, most true entrepreneurs see gaps. I wrote that one down because people that aren't entrepreneurs, they're not looking for gaps. A gap is sitting there facing them, they don't see it. Yeah. Have you always thought of yourself as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I've pretty much since like, I don't know if it was almost from birth, but I'll give it to like age 4. Like I definitely was the kid in elementary school being like, hey, I'll draw your picture for like a nickel, like at lunch, and it's like this goofy picture and they're like, oh my gosh, I want a portrait. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, let me draw your picture, and it's like a nickel. And then like, the snows out here when they had those huge snowstorms, like I'm like, okay, if I go outside and I charge everybody $20, I can make $300, and then I can do that and I can print signs and all that stuff. And I give a lot of credit to my mom. She worked a lot of years in advertising and media buying. So I was definitely when they had Corel Painter before it was like Adobe. Like I remember just like making stuff.
You're not old enough to. You're not even old enough to see that far.
I definitely remember just like going through it and like, you know, early like InDesign and Photoshop. And even if it wasn't like anything business wise, I've just been around it for so long and like being able to go to just so many like meetings. I'm just like in the back, but like low key, I'm listening to everything. So it kind of came a little bit secondhand. And then by the time I got into college, you know, I went to go for a design degree, but that's where my, I guess you could say, marketing journey really started. A friend of mine, when we were both resident assistants, he was a rapper, I was a designer. He said, hey, I need to market my songs. I said, hey, I need a client to make stuff for. So we were making cover arts, you know, producing shows.
Again, the world just came. I mean, you didn't know this person. They just
we just worked together.
That's great.
And then, you know, we were doing stuff at, you know, South by Southwest. That's a huge music festival in Austin, Texas. A whole bunch of venues from Baltimore to DC, just making posters and T-shirts and wearing them on campus. And then I told my professor this at the time when I first started doing it, not under D17. I was using my classes to do client work. So like if I had a graphic design class and it's like, oh, we're doing poster design, I was making the posters for my friend that we were going to sell later that night.
No, but I love, hold class. On. You're stealing me. You don't even need me to interview you because that was,
how it goes.
You know, so you're an entrepreneur, you see gaps, you've got a creative side, you're still young, you're in college, but transitioning that to becoming a marketer is a different thing than just, there's a lot of creative people that aren't marketers at all. They're artists.
Yeah.
And you are somewhere in between the two. You've got the artistic side, but talk to me through, I want to hear a lot more about this, about learning in school and having these side projects and marrying it all as you're trying, because you're learning at this point.
Yeah.
You're learning on the job. There's no founder story yet.
No,
it is now, but not when you're doing it. It's just work and learning.
Yeah. And I think really kind of going back to the college ages. So that class that I was doing this stuff in, our professor, our senior thesis was building a brand. So that kind of was my first inclination of like, okay, this is how we're building like tangible products and using like design on the concepts we've learned. And when I presented the final project, I remember it was called Eternal Number. That was like the name they gave us. It was just like a random generator and that's what I got. And I remember he came up to me after class and he was like, I don't know what you put together, but this is really interesting. And I was like, okay, maybe this is something I could build off of building a business and then building it bigger. So
you didn't do your project on your rapper friend?
No, I did it on something else. This is like a whole different thing. And I built it kind of like on a fake clothing brand at the time. And then, like I said, once I got to like graduation, I was like, okay, I think I could really turn this into a namesake, actually something that's not just a project. And then that's how I kind of grew into like, okay, let me make a T-shirt for my friend. Let me make a T-shirt for myself. Let me, wear it at work and see what people say. Let me, wear it here and see what people say. Let me go to the gym and wear it here. And that's how it kind of started to develop, like people were understanding what the logo was and what I was doing. And then it kind of built into my 9-to-5, which was like, okay, I was working at the mortgage company. I was doing obviously marketing for them, social media. When I got to A6, I was working on like the global standpoint. So that was all creating briefs and working with agencies and teams. And I was really in, like, obviously it's A6, a huge running company. And over time, I was like, okay, now I'm really seeing how this works, what the processes are like. It's not just like, hey, I buy a shoe at Foot Locker, but then it's also like, this is all the steps that it took into it. And I was kind of pulling those things that I was learning from there and pulling the stuff that I was learning from my philanthropy job, like community service, grassroots and stuff like that, and really putting it all together. So that's when we started our first project. And that was more or less just like working with Oakland Mills High School, working with Towson University, with their sports teams, with Oakland Mills and their like boosters and athletic clubs. So it's kind of like, okay, we're using community, we're using athletics. And obviously, I'm leading the design, but it's really just kind of pushing, like we mentioned, those gaps. Like, okay, I went to, and we're not an FBS school. So at Towson, I was like, I want to make something cool for our football program. If they're not going to do it, I'm just going to do it myself. I went up there with 400 T-shirts and I gave them out at the tailgate. No marketing, no nothing, just a guerrilla campaign. We gave them all out and we're still making connections with that today. And, even the Oakland Mills one, it was our 50th anniversary. I was like, well, I should do something cool. I love the school. I've made so many connections from it. That's where we were really taught like about community and, the people around us and who we're going to grow up with, and we're going to be with them until they, get married and have kids and stuff like that. Now it's like, okay, what can I fill in for them, especially with the student base, making stuff with the boosters program. I'm like, hey, let's up this thing. You guys want cooler stuff? I make cool stuff. Let's put it together, and this is the products that come.
Since you're talking about business, let me ask something. So community, to me, being involved in the community is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And it's the most natural way to network.
For sure.
So you seem like, I haven't asked you this before, and by the way, everybody, we didn't know each other we didn't prep for this very much.
Yeah.
I mean, was networking and taking that community involvement natural for you?
No.
I was going to think you'd say yes.
I was very much a person that I don't want to be in the spotlight. I really don't want to talk to anybody.
Well, then talk to me about that. How do you get over that fear or apprehension?
I think it's really you just got to jump in. If you want something, you got to go get it. And obviously somebody knows how to get it. And I'm at the point now that it's like somebody knows somebody to get to where I want to be. And obviously being in Baltimore, Under Armour's right there. When I was working at ASICS, it was the right people to talk to, like, hey, so you guys are hosting an event in DC. Are you guys working with small businesses in the area that could potentially come be a vendor or like help sponsor any smaller event activations? Then I would kind of like slip D17 in. So I would just switch the hats out and I'd be like,
I want everybody to remember this. And if you want something, you have to go get it. And even if it's not your natural, even if it's not that easy, we train salespeople all the time to you have to ask.
I'm a big cold caller. I'm a big cold messenger, like LinkedIn, stuff like that. Just emails, like so many things. A lot of people, they're like, well, who'd you know to whatever? I said, no, I really went on LinkedIn, looked up the company profile, went to people, found the director or at least an associate of the marketing. I said, hey, you guys are doing this, this, and this. I think my brand can provide this, this, and this. And then I just give them a proposal. If they say no, it's cool. I'll do a follow-up or something like that. But usually I try to get stuff.
Everybody, you have to do digging. You have to dig for it. It's
in the name or my name.
I can't believe I didn't pick that one up. That's so good.
Gotta love it.
No, but I tell I have 3 kids, 25, 22, 19. Tiff's heard me. I mention them sometimes because I try to coach them on be ambitious and go figure it out. There's info out there if you're willing to go dig for it.
Mm-hmm.
I love that I keep saying the word dig, but if you want something, you have to go get it. It's out there.
For sure.
But so you weren't a natural networker.
No, that's it's crazy to think about. Even before we were talking, even in high school, I was not let's do whatever. I was just I'm going to school, I'm going home. I'm playing sports, I'm going home.
Was that a hard transition for you to change your mindset around that?
I think over time, like we had mentioned, there's things that, you have dreams, you have aspirations. Even when I was playing sports, it's you have to build a team together. It's if I want to get better, I have to work with my teammate. And then eventually, at one point, I'm like, yo, bro, let's train together in the summer. Let's do this together, take more initiative. And I think a lot of the times,
lead.
Yeah. And I think a lot of creatives or just artists, we get stuck in the idea that someone's going to steal my idea. Someone's going to do it first. I kind of got tired of waiting and I wanted to do more action. So that's when I was just you know what? I'm gonna start a clothing brand. You know what? I'm gonna make a song in my basement, even if it's bad.
I'm gonna send that message on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask that person for something.
Yeah, and usually a lot of the times, you get a couple no's, but usually it's just let me go back to the drawing board and see how I can realign in a couple months or,
That's muscle memory, just like training for athletics. You have to train yourself to be that way.
Yeah.
I believe.
For sure. And I think now that I've been in the position that I've just been in so many rooms now, I can kind of go into those cold calls and kind of command my position. It's hey, this is what we're already doing. Here's who I worked with before.
Love that.
I'm also an ASICS ambassador. What can I do to bring you value? And then usually it's we're actually doing a 5K later this month with, Susan G. Komen or something like that. And I'm great. Well, actually, if you guys need apparel, if you guys need metal design, if you guys need people just to come out, I'm happy to bring my club. Let's do a quick referral link or something like that just to bring website traffic and then creating content and then going from there. And I'm out there running too. So
I love it. I mean, there's so much to unpack here and so much learning for young people. I love it. No, look, the other one I wanted to probe into a little bit, and the 5 to 9 after the 9 to 5. I mean, there's always more time. If you want it bad enough, you got to make the time to make it happen.
Yeah, it's definitely, I feel like a lot of people, they say like, oh, like I want to be a business, but you still have to keep the lights on. You know what I mean? Like it's nothing against like having a 9 to 5. Like it definitely fueled a lot of stuff. Like I was technically like the investor. Like every year I would always take one paycheck and put it to the side. I'm like, okay, this is going to be like my working budget for like D17 stuff. And like I said, I wouldn't have gotten into the philanthropy, knowing how to put together briefs or, doing the analytics side, like Google Analytics, SEO, stuff like that, if I didn't have the 9 to 5. So
you learned.
I learned, and then just took everything that I took from every spot. And then now it's gotten to the point that like old supervisors are reaching out to me. They're like, I love what you've been doing. I remember you were sneaking in the break room, like trying to record something really quickly or like, sending emails. And I think I was just so young and ambitious. Now they're like, weirdly enough, like old supervisors like, hey, I'm running a 10K later this month. We're looking for sponsors. How can I get you involved? If it's going to be, hey, I'm doing this, how can I get you involved? And I'm like, okay, this is what those relationships, it may have been getting Starbucks at the time or something like that.
Look, grit and ambition can't be taught. And it's recognized though, like for you to say your former supervisor said, I saw you doing that, you were ambitious, you were working on that. That's a good thing.
Yeah, and I feel like they low key just let me do it. Like I feel like
if you're getting your work done on your 9 to 5, then the work was done. It's good for them for letting you.
I think they definitely saw what I was doing, even if it was just like designing stuff or even if it was doing the clothing stuff. I think they really were like, he's getting his work done, he's still doing everything else. I'm not like on company time just doing it, but it's like, okay, if I have lunch, I can do this real quick, or let me just run out and mail a package really fast. It just gave me a little bit of an opportunity. And like I said, now they're in the positions that they can say, okay, well, what can I do to help you now? You helped me with so much. What can I do for you? Like I said, sponsorships or, just coming out backpack drive or something like that. They reach out to me and I'm happy to support what they're doing and bringing that.
You could teach classes on how to network, even though I find it fascinating. You weren't originally, you didn't consider yourself a networker.
No, I'm also very stubborn. So sometimes I'm just like, literally fun story. When I was still doing ASICS corporate, I really wanted to do stuff with Under Armour. I had a buddy that worked at the Under Armour store in Columbia, Maryland, and he told me the execs were coming in to look at the store. Obviously they want to look at stuff. I'm ballsy. I went up to Kevin Plank and I was like, look, man, I'm in Maryland brand. What can we do together? Like, I'd love to get your number. Like, I went up to him, but I didn't just run up and whatever. I kind of stood next to him. He's looking at stuff and I'm like, this is a great, material setup that you guys have. He's, oh yeah, we put together some of the best designers. I'm like, yeah, you guys have Stephen Curry, Cam Newton, Tom Brady. The lineup is insane. The Rock. I love to see what the collection's doing. He's like, you either work in the business or I know you from somewhere. I was like, I work in the business, but I haven't met you yet. Terrance Diggs, nice to meet you. And we took a picture and everything, and I got his number and stuff like that. And that led me to getting back with ASICS as an ambassador because they all talk. And when I was already there, they're like, hey, we might not have something for you right now, but obviously, ASICS could still give you something in terms of being an ambassador. And here I am.
You can't teach guts. Well done on that. Well done on that story.
Like I said, I'm just stubborn. I was like, I'm going to talk to this man. And I'm like, I feel like I can sell water to a fish. So I'm like, let's just get in there and see what happens. If he says no, I just go home and say,
So as we always ask a little bit about sales and marketing. So we've talked a lot about sales and networking, but specifically marketing is now let's get into 2021, 22, 23. You're trying to ramp this thing up. You still have a 9 to 5. What are you doing you've given us a lot of the tactical networking things and event things, but what are you doing marketing wise to kind of ramp up your know-how?
Yeah, I think it really came from the event activation side, working with local breweries, like I said, local charities, if they're doing any events that we can help sponsor. And I think around 2021 to 23, we got really big in the soccer space. So there is a lot of like, soccer, like there's a Premier League, there's divisions
I'm
below
aware,
it.
yeah.
So now there's like the USL, I think it was UPSL.
USL,
Yeah. So a lot of those teams, they need sponsors, like the ones that are like the lower divisions, they need sponsors for kits. So I was like, hey, I've got X amount of dollars. I'm just gonna go sponsor like every team in Maryland, even if it's like a small thing. So that kind of really grew a lot of like user generated content because people are taking pictures of the soccer kits and they see the logo on the back. And then now like every player that on the team, they're curious about the brand. If it's other like organizations, they're like, hey, who's sponsoring your kits? And I'm like, oh, this D17 guy. So it was a lot of like grassroots marketing. And then as well, like jumping in huge in like Google Analytics, seeing like what numbers are coming through the channels. We do a lot on social media. And I was like, I really want to just dominate Instagram to get those eyes and tags and collaborations. And then just going from there. So it was a lot of just like the sponsorships and events and being able to pop up where I can, like as a vendor. In DC, I went to Jacksonville, Florida, did a pop-up. I went to North Carolina and did a pop-up just to kind of see how the brand was tested outside of just like my usual circle.
So you weren't just a marketer, you were an analyzer too, which is I mean, anybody who's, to be a great marketer, you have to analyze what works.
Yeah, I'm big on just seeing, especially, I'm a big Google Analytics guy, like just source traffic.
Most creatives are not that way.
See, I feel like some of them are, but they just don't know where to look. Like I feel like sometimes, at least early in my career, I kind of was pushed onto one side, and it's like, well, if I'm doing social media, obviously there's the content, then there's also like impressions, engagement rate, link clicks, stuff like that. How can I generate that? But I'm kind of looking at it from like a back end approach. How can I tailor the content to drive this part? How can I make a design to drive this engagement? So like, for example, these hats we did were for the Bowie Bay Sox. What we did is we looked back on the research from their inaugural season, which was in 1994. We took the original B, but kind of remixed it into something else. And that was based on like sales numbers, just like collateral that they did. That was some of the first things that they created. And it was like, okay, how can we change it into something that's contemporary but still nostalgic? And that's how we came up with this. So it's like the D, but it's also a 1 and 7.
It's great.
And they loved it. So being able to kind of take both of those approaches and then going back to like my sales side, when I'm making those calls, it's like, hey, yes, we have 170 runners, but we have this many men, this many women, this many, brands are being represented, kind of those things. And that's how it kind of changes the conversation.
Oh man, look, if we had 3 hours, I have questions I'm going to ask you after we're done about this, because there's so much learning out there. And a lot of the smaller businesses we've talked to, as they're starting, they're kind of winging it. And you're definitely not a wing it kind of guy, I can tell.
I'm definitely in the batter's box studying pitches. Like if we want to keep it sportsy, like I'm definitely, like I'm not just like, go for yard. Like I'm definitely like, if I can get a smooth single off this, I can work with it because I'm going to steal 3 bases. You know what I mean? Like,
everybody, did you hear that? When you're in the batter's box, don't just swing, analyze the next swing. That's phenomenal stuff, Terrance.
I don't need a home run every time. Like I know a lot of small business owners, like sometimes just getting that one win can just like cycle so many other things, and then being able to collaborate like on the same levels. And I'll keep it quick. So like right now we're working with a tech company in North Carolina that helps match people with running shoes. It helps them understand like their cadence, their stride, their preference and sizes. And he's a one-shop guy. I was a one-shop guy. I just sent him an email. I said, hey, I love what you're doing. Like, my name's Terrance. I have a running apparel brand located in Maryland. I saw that you guys are looking to get more people and more eyes on your stuff. I love to embed some of your algorithms and forums onto our site. You guys can do all the branding and direction to get more traffic to your site. I'm getting the cool authority because now you can go to our site and match your shoes that you're looking to get when you start your run. And while you're there, you can grab some cool gear. And, we formed a relationship, and now I'm, going to Charlotte to go run a 10K down there with him, and we're gonna make some content and have fun.
Dude, I love this. This is so much good stuff. I mean, good for you. Let me ask you, what we kind of end with most days is, it's July of 2024. Lots going on in the world, the election and all that. Chaos, I don't know a better word for it.
Yeah.
And we talked about your past and how you got here, and clearly I believe you got a tremendously bright future to keep crushing it. What's working well for you right now today in July of 2024 that other business people in any industry could kind of take away? Like what's kind of your thing that you'd hang your D17 hat on today?
Yeah, I think right now, especially with a lot of the events coming up, like in the soccer space, obviously they just finished Copa America, the Euros, and the World Cup is coming to the United States. So we're kind of looking 2 years ahead for that to really get on the ground and like host watch parties, have people come out and just get gear and experience the game. And then later in October, we're going to be doing some stuff with the Baltimore Running Festival, just being able to work with some of the local clubs and how we're really bringing the sport of running to more people, whether it is seasoned runners, someone that's just getting into it. How are we kind of using that activation to just bring more people to it? I grew to love it. Like I said, I was a sprinter. Anything over 400 meters, I said, yeah, we're not doing that. Now it's kind of like, I'm running a 5K a day. Like, this is nothing. I need to like get my mileage up. So how we're able to kind of use those learning activations and events and bigger like sports
active, stay connected.
Yeah, and just going from there. And it's, running has been it, soccer has been it. We're trying to get into pickleball. We'd love to get into like basketball. I'd love to like host a celebrity game or something like that, like at my high school or something to raise money for them. And here we are. As of today, it's just a lot of emails, and I'll actually be running at Kenilworth for the Charles Street 12 miler preview run. So
today you're running?
August 8th.
Oh,
we'll be doing that.
It's hot outside today in Baltimore, everybody.
Yeah,
really like sweating a little bit. Well, look, Terrance, thank you so much for coming in, man. This is tremendous stuff. Everybody, check out D17. It's in the show notes below. This guy's a winner. This guy's crushing it, and I got faith. Look, I didn't meet you before today. This guy's going to be successful in this town. You're going to hear a lot about him.
Yeah.
But it's great to meet you, man.
Glad to be here.
Well, look, everybody, thanks for tuning in to the How They Crushed It podcast. Terrance was great, D17. Check them out, please. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.